Welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, where our job is to help you build visibility, professional credibility, and connection with your ideal client by putting the human at the center of innovative marketing, so you can build and strengthen an engaging, enduring relationship with your ideal clients. I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm honored that you're here with me. If you haven't joined our wonderful marketing transformation community yet, go to InnovaBuzz.co and collect your free gift as well. Do subscribe to the show and also leave a review because it helps others find us. Let's get into today's masterclass on this InnovaBuzz podcast.
If you are passionate about what you do and you know you can help people, and if you answer yes to both of those questions, then you need to be promoting yourself, because you're doing everyone in the world a disservice by not putting yourself out there. If you can solve their problem, it's your job to make sure that they can find you. And if you're not willing to promote yourself, why would anyone else?
Welcome back. I hope you've had an awesome week so far. If you haven't yet listened to my recent conversations with the author of The Attention Factor, Alice Aspen March, and with Roger Salem of the Winner's Circle International, then do go check them out, but only after you've listened to today's conversation. I'm really excited today to have on the InnovaBuzz podcast as my guest, Kerry Heaps. Kerry is the publisher of Pageant Platform magazine, and she's the host of Pageant Platform Podcast. Kerry's also a sought-after speaker, the founder of Pitch Like a Bitch Media, an online resource to gain more media exposure. She's the author of the Create Your Own Media series for podcasting, publishing, and publicity. And she also owns Book.Speak.Repeat, a speaker submission service. In our discussion today, Kerry talked to me about how to market yourself as a speaker. She highlighted the top 5 things speakers need before they start marketing, and she explained why a speaker reel might not be actually a good thing. Without further ado then, let's fly into the hive and get the buzz from Kerry Heaps. Hi, I'm your host, Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm really excited to welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast today from Orlando, Florida in the USA, Kathleen Heaps, who's the founder and president of Book.Speak.Repeat. She's publisher of the Pageant Platform magazine and host of the Pageant Platform Podcast. Welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, Kerry. It's a privilege to have you as my guest here today.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity, Jürgen. I appreciate it, and I'm really looking forward to being here with you and your listening audience today.
Now, Gleb Tsipursky, who was our guest on episode 271 of the InnovaBuzz podcast, suggested that we get you on the show and have a conversation with you, Kerry. So big hello to Gleb.
Hi, Gleb.
Now, you are a speaker and an author, and you also help people land speaking gigs with a good system. So I'm really looking forward to digging into all of those topics some more today. But before we get on to all of that, give us a bit of a whistle-stop tour of your background. How did you get to where you are today, and what were some of the pivotal moments in that journey?
Well, yeah, definitely. How I got to doing what I'm doing now, I've had my own business for 16 years as of this month. So it's our 16-year anniversary. And when I first started out on my own, I actually was looking to start a pageant magazine, get into the modeling and acting industry on the flip side of the desk, to be a booker and have my own agency. And as entrepreneurship always happens, it's never a straight line. And what happened was I had left the corporate world. I was a recruiter, and I would help other companies, I'd find job openings for candidates and help match them up. I kind of worked a split desk and did a lot of networking, had to connect a lot of people together. Seems I had a good knack for that. And when I left the corporate world and I started my own business, I thought, I'm going to start doing my own networking events until things take off in the modeling and acting and pageantry world. And it just kind of took on a life of its own. I started getting people together at a bookstore for coffee in the morning, and then that turned into lunch events. Then that turned into trade shows, and I started doing meeting planning work, organizing my own meetings, booking my own talent, and everything else just kind of took a back seat. So fast forward many years later, I was doing a magazine for a called Strictly Marketing for the marketing industry. And I was working with big companies and business to business sales and marketing. And I actually got sick about 4 years ago. And I kind of had that life changing moment sitting in the hospital. And I thought, I'm sitting here with something that if I don't get rid of it, it's going to kill me. What am I doing? And all the things that I really wanted to do, which was, being a speaker myself and working in the pageant industry and just helping people find their message and getting their message out there just wasn't happening. So once I got well, I did my last issue of the marketing magazine and I started Pageant Platform, and I also started Book.Speak.Repeat about 3 years ago. I got back into being a speaker, and my first gut reaction was like, wow, you've got to be kidding me. This is, it wasn't anything like what it used to be, where there were more speaker or more paid engagements than there were speakers. So I wound up having to kind of create my own process. And once we figured out how it worked now, because there are more speakers than there are paid engagements now, when we figured out the process and started accumulating a database, I told my team, I said, listen, this is clearly an issue for other speakers. It's got to be a pain point. And that's kind of where the idea came from to start Book Speak Repeat. And we also have Plan Meet Repeat, where we work with suppliers and meeting planners on the flip side of the event industry. And it all just kind of works together. And yeah, that's kind of how I started my business 16 years ago and where I'm at today and what I'm doing.
Well, that's a great story. First of all, congratulations on the 16-year anniversary. That's pretty awesome I mean, a lot of people don't get this far when they start a small business, but you've kind of developed a area or a niche around a passion that you had. And then I like that you identified that there's needs on two sides of that coin. So there's speakers looking for gigs to speak at, and there's gigs that are clearly looking for speakers, and matching that up. Yeah. So I guess one of the things that fascinates me is there's a lot of people in business who are actually afraid of speaking and afraid of getting out there, and yet they recognize the need to spread their message and to do some marketing. Why do you think it is that some people are afraid to actually get on stage and speak?
Well, I honestly think it's not I think there's two different fears out there. Yes, I do think that there is a fear that people have of getting up on stage. And my best advice to that, I think the reason being is because, it's just stage fright. It's jitters. I mean, anytime you get more than 6 people in a room, sometimes that's a little too much for people to handle. It's very rare that you find someone that does not get butterflies in their stomach before they take the stage. Same thing with me. I still get a little nervous before I do a podcast interview or even before I go on stage to speak. It's perfectly normal to feel that way. And you just have to kind of face that fear. And once people get started and they start talking about what they're passionate about, I find that takes over. And all of the fear dissipates at that point. I do think that there is a fear, and it has been a huge problem, and we do try to solve that with our company as much as we can. But people do have a fear of, they're passionate, they're good at what they do. Maybe you have a speaker who's a communication speaker and they help your teams, your office teams work together, HR and operations, and getting everybody to communicate openly. And they're just so great at what they do. But when it comes time to selling themselves, getting on the phone, talking to a meeting planner, telling them, hey, you need to pick me and here's why. For whatever reason, they can't do that. They just it's almost
Mm.
like those people who say they're expert drivers or, I'm a great driver, but then they're driving along the highway and a police officer might pull up beside them, and all of a sudden they just forget how to drive. So I think that fear comes from they're good at what they do, but they don't feel that they're good enough to promote themselves. And what I tell everyone is if you are passionate about what you do and you know you can help people, and if you answer yes to both of those questions, then you need to be promoting yourself because you're doing everyone in the world a disservice by not putting yourself out there. If you can solve their problem, it's your job to make sure that they can find you. And if you're not willing to promote yourself, why would anyone else?
Mm. I love that. It's and I think it comes back like what you were saying earlier about everyone pretty well gets butterflies or a little bit nervous before speaking, before a podcast, whatever. To me, that's because you
Mhm.
care, because you want to do a really good job and you want to serve your audience. And so you do get a little bit nervous there. And if you remember that it is about the audience, then once you get started and once you get into your passion, as you said, the nerves dissipate a little bit. But then it comes back to that promoting yourself to actually get on those stages, get in front of the audience that you can help, and that's the other side of that coin. So if you have bring the same servants mindset to that marketing, then maybe you can overcome that. So what's your process for marketing speakers then?
Well, our process is twofold. We work with speakers two different ways. We have a program where we help, speakers who are trying to really build a brand for themselves. They want to get media interaction in addition to speaking opportunities. So we actually work with them hands-on, doing all of the labor, getting them booked, as far as, getting the word out. They still have to do their initial vetting call with the meeting planner, but we help them with follow-up, we help them with the initial outreach and, kind of help to play middleman, so to speak. And the same thing too with, getting them booked. Most speakers fall in our other category where, they're more involved, which they should be. So we have kind of a do-it-yourself program where we're actually helping to take a lot of the work out of getting booked. So for example, we will help them, find, we'll scour the internet. Our team does every day to find different open calls for speakers, and we put those in an email and we send those out a couple of times a week. So that way they don't have to spend time finding them. So when we send those to the speaker, it's their job to fill them out. They need to fill them out, put in their topic, their summary, their bio, whatever the meeting planner is asking for, and then click submit. So we send the opportunities over to them, but it is their job to fill it out because if they don't fill it out and click submit, no one sees their information. So that's one way.
Mm.
The other way, we have a unique program called third party sponsorship where we actually will submit them for opportunities that typically wouldn't pay, but they're part of our third party sponsorship. So they get their speaking fee subsidized. It's usually not their regular fee, but it's enough where they're still making some money and they get in front of a good, viable audience. But speakers still have to partake in their marketing. When we do a vetting call that a meeting planner will do, they typically have to do a vetting call so they can, talk with the meeting planner, tell them why, how they can help their audience, what they can do, for the speaker. So the speaker has to do that because they're the ones taking the stage. I've had a few speakers who try to push that off to their assistant, and that's one of the worst things that they can do. If that's assistant's not going up on stage with you and speaking and educating, they don't need to be talking to the meeting planner. So we're basically helping make that bridge, but it's the speaker's job to walk across it, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I guess, if I think of myself as a podcast host, and that's like the event planner in a way, and people pitching to me for podcast, I get a lot of pitches. In fact, I had one just before we got on this call that was an assistant sending me information. This person would be a great guest for your podcast, but they didn't send me much information on it. So they basically left the work to me to do. And I thought, well, this is not really good. So in some ways, that's the analogy of that kind of mistake that you're suggesting people don't do as speakers, right? They
Mhm.
actually get on and make it easy for the speaking or the event host to make the decision: is this person going to help my audience or not?
Exactly. And, again, normally anymore they want to have a conversation. They want to talk to you because they have their own unique needs for their meeting. And if they've never worked with you before, yeah, it's great if a lot of people think, well, I need to have a speaker's reel or video of me speaking. I have no video of me speaking and I work all the time. So, with that, it's almost like, you know, again, I can't sell someone else's program just like someone else can't sell my body language program. They're not going to be able to. They're not the expert I am. So I need to get on the phone and talk with them. And sometimes too, they'll say, "Hey, these are the requests that we're getting. Can you formulate your speech and reflect this in what you're talking about?" And again, if you have an assistant or someone else taking that call, they
Mm,
really they can't answer that question. So all it does is frustrates the meeting planner because they'll say, "Well, can I give you a call tomorrow? Can we do this? Can we do that?" And then nothing ever happens with it. They move on to another candidate that they feel will be easier to work with. So I do see a lot of speakers who lose business because of that.
mm. All right. Well, what are some of the things that a speaker can put in place then, that they when they get into that situation of, okay, there's an opportunity to speak and here's what you need to provide, how can they make that easier for themselves by getting all the assets in place, and what are the assets that they need?
That's a great question. So a couple of things that they're going to need, actually five things. Number one, have your headshot, have a current headshot, 6 months or at the very latest a year. The reason you want to have that is because if they're going to ask you for a headshot, they put that in their program booklet. I have had it happen where at the conference at the last minute they've had to change what room I'm in and they're not able to get a hold of me, so they're looking for me in the crowd. They're looking at my photo. If I look nothing like my photo, they're going to miss right over me. So don't submit a photo that's 25 years old. So have current photos. Your bio is your entrepreneurial resume. You need to have that updated. I tell people try to update it every 6 months, whether there's an award or you were on a specific podcast or national TV. You want to update that consistently. You don't want to have things that were on there that you did 25 years ago or 10 years ago or even 5. Consistently update it. It doesn't need to be really long, maybe a paragraph, paragraph and a half, but keep it fresh, keep it updated. The next thing that you need, the next three things are your topic, summary, and 3 to 5 takeaways. So what that is that if you speak like I speak on body language, so my topic is bodies don't lie, body language basics. I have a summary, which is a couple of sentences on what I'm going to be talking about, and then 3 to 5 takeaways are basically what would you learn if you were at this workshop. You're going to be able to walk away and know what's in a handshake. You'll be able to read upper body language. So you always want to point out what they're going to learn, and you as the speaker need to put that together because they are going to ask for that. Typically, if they choose you as a speaker, they're going to copy and paste whatever you send them into their marketing material. They will not change your words. They're not going to edit it. They make that very clear because if they change one word, it can change the whole sentence of what you're teaching. And that can be misleading to people who sign up for your workshop or for your keynote. So you need to have those. And then I would say, lastly, be easy to contact. We went through a couple of weeks ago. I went through with a meeting planner. They were looking for a specific speaker. We didn't have anyone, so I was helping them do a search, and it amazed me how many people have a great website. They have no contact information on there.
Mm.
They'll have a contact us form that doesn't even work. We would fill them out and we'd get a 404 error. You can't email them, you cannot call them. So if you make it difficult for them to reach you, again, they move on to the next person. So have your email, your phone number. You're going to get a mix of phone calls, but that's part of being in business. You can't be afraid to try to hide yourself, because you'll hide yourself away from business. So be easy to reach. And then I would say lastly, be easy to work with. Um don't again, don't be one of those people who's constantly asking for, getting things to the meeting planner the day before they need it, or if the meeting planner has to run you down to get information. That is a great way to not get rebooked. And believe it or not, on the meeting planning side, it's a small world. I mean, meeting planners talk. They get a lot of referral. They'll refer people back and forth, like, hey, this person was great to work with, simply because they don't want any drama the day of their event. They don't need it. So be easy to work with.
Hmm. Yeah, well, there's 5 really great steps there, and if you think about it, it's uh, any business could use those tips to kind of have a core philosophy of, particularly the being easy to work with and being easy to contact and having up-to-date information, that when people jump on your website, for example, that it actually reflects the current state, not 5 years ago when you first built the website.
Yes, and to your website, it's vital to have a website. You don't want to overload it with information. Again, if you do have some videos of you speaking, great, but don't feel like you have to invest time and effort into doing a speaker's reel. Meeting planners actually don't like those. It doesn't really
Mm.
show them that, well, they know it's scripted. They know that you're only picking the best pieces. It doesn't tell them how you handle a heckler in the audience, or, what I would call an active participant. It doesn't tell them how you handle things going wrong, audiovisual not working, how professional you are in those instances. And I even had a meeting planner say to me one time, if you could just do a video, keep it under a minute. I don't really care about the lighting or the audio as long as I can see you and hear you. But tell me something that's going to make me want to get up out of my chair, change my business, change my life. That's what I want to hear. It's really more about your message. It's not about putting together great music and having people. It's nice to have. I mean, there, some of those are nice, but at the end of the day, it's not going to make or break whether you're going to get booked. It really won't. And up
Mm.
until last year, I've been speaking for quite some time, and I've had no video of me speaking because it's in my contract. I'm not allowed to record at these larger shows, and definitely not during private training events for companies. So I had a gentleman who sent me a video. He actually filmed part of my presentation on his cell phone, and he offered to send it to me. And I'm like, yeah, that would be great. So again, it's not going to hinder you from getting booked.
That's fascinating. I'd never thought of it in those terms, that the meeting planner actually isn't that impressed by a fully scripted and produced speaker's reel, that they're actually more interested in the message. And, well, that's not surprising, but they're also more interested in how would you deal with situations that might come up in any speaking situation, like hecklers or the lights going down or the projector light blowing when you're using PowerPoint slides.
Exactly.
Mm.
And honestly, at the end of the day, like I said, it all boils down to, we all have a job to do. And the speaker is there, your job might only be for an hour or for 30 minutes to take the stage, but they really want to know, are you professional? I, even as a meeting planner, have seen people who boast themselves as a professional speaker and they don't show up. They don't call, they don't show up, nothing. It's happened, and people are surprised when I tell them that. So that is why, it is a meeting planners market now. There are more speakers than there are paid opportunities out there. So it is more competitive. You can still make a good living speaking, but if you're not easy to work with, you're not going to get rehired. Word does get around. It happens. And, you want to be easy to work with. You want to be there. You want to be part of their team. It's just like applying for a job. That job may only last for an hour or 30 minutes, but you want to bring your A game. You want to get rehired. That's the ultimate goal.
Mm. Yeah, well, it always surprises me in some ways, there's similarities between podcasting as a podcast host and the event host of a bunch of speakers that turn up for the event. And it always surprises me how some people do make it difficult. You didn't. You made it very easy for me. How some people often don't turn up when there's an appointment. And as you say, it's just I don't understand why people do that. I mean, if you've committed to something, the very least you could do is let people know, hey, something's come up.
Oh, of
I have to
course.
cancel.
Yeah, and exactly. And honestly, in the speaking realm, like I said, it is more competitive. When I first started writing a column last year, it's a speaker's column for She Owns It, which is a popular women's blog. And the column was going to be on speaking. I still write it. And my first one, I thought, well, I think it would be fun to survey meeting planners and find out, what are the top 5 things that get people taken out of the running, for speaker selection at these large events. And after I surveyed everybody, I was embarrassed to even write the article because other than, don't eat paste, it's the stuff that you learn in kindergarten. Do what you say you're going to do, show up on time, you know, don't be a blow in, blow out speaker, meaning you take the stage and then you just leave, you head to the airport, you don't stick around for questions, be a part of the event. And that was another one. But yeah, it is amazing sometimes the level of professionalism, and I think it's in every industry, but I think with some of the speakers, because the industry has changed so much that they're not in high demand. They can't command the things that they used to command, and people don't, they're not happy about that. But the industry is not going to shift to fit you. You have to shift to fit the industry if you want to work.
Hmm. All right. So for somebody that wants to start landing some paid speaking gigs, I mean, in addition to the 5 things you mentioned earlier that they should have in place and have done well, how do they get started with that, and where do they find opportunities?
Well, a couple of places people can look is, first and foremost, there is an event posting site out there called eventsinamerica.com. So if you go to eventsinamerica.com, you can actually get a free speaker profile. You can post your profile on there for free. And it lists all of the different upcoming events, everything from trade shows to conventions. We actually use that site quite frequently. So that is a great free resource to look for association and trade show events. There is another one that is out there that actually does for trade shows worldwide. It's called Events I, and I spelled out EYE, eventsi.com. And that shows all the trade shows that are coming up for Canada and the UK, all the other parts of the world. So those are 2 places you can go to find opportunities. And you do have to reach out to the show director. I recommend going to their site, see if they have a call for speaker or a call for RFPs that you can fill out. Most of the larger shows do have that. And if they don't have it up, you can actually register to get those updates sent to you when that posting is live. So that is another thing that you can do. Here's another tip if you're wanting to speak to colleges and universities. If you want to speak to students, you can actually do a search on Google. And what you want to type in is Director of Campus Activities, is typically the person you're going to talk to for that. So what you can do is you can type in the asterisk, which is if you hit your shift key and then hit the 8, the little asterisk button is above that. Hit your space bar and type out Director of Campus Activities and hit enter. And for some reason, that does something to the search results in Google where it will actually pull up all of the different colleges and who their director of campus activities is. So you can reach out to them directly and talk with them about your speech or topic and what they may have coming up that you would be a good fit for. Now, if you're looking to speak to private companies, really need to sit down and write out your goals. What companies do you want to talk to? What industries do you want to, would really resonate with your message? You need to figure out what size of the company you want to go after. So, for example, if you specialize in training HR departments, then your best bet is to target companies that have at least 300 employees or more. If you want to train, real estate agents or salon owners, then you just really need to get a list of real estate and salon owners in your area. So it really just depends on who you got to figure out who you want to target. So that way you're maximizing your time. A lot of people just want to send out emails. I personally am against that. You can send out an email, but you will find out so much more if you just pick up the phone and call them and find out, are you the one who, typically brings in an outside speaker? Have you thought about, this is my topic? Have you thought about getting training on this? Figure out what you want to say, how you want to say it. I always recommend writing a script. I've been doing this for many, many years, and we used to do telemarketing for large companies. So if you have a script in front of you, it's easy to get off key. You could be sitting there waiting for the phone to ring, and then your mind drifts and someone picks
Mm.
up the phone. So you want to be able to have something to anchor you to refer back to. And it makes you sound more professional as well. You don't have to read it verbatim, but just have it in front of you, key talking points. And make a goal for yourself that, hey, I'm going to reach out to 100 companies this week. That's basically 20 calls a day, which might seem like a lot, but really it isn't. You can get that done in an hour, maybe two at the most. So, you want to start building up that pipeline. You need to have leads to call. So, that's always been my recommendation. I know people who will do that. They'll buy a laundry list of meeting planners, and they just here's the tip. Meeting planners get emailed all the time. But if you want to set yourself apart, pick up the phone. And you shouldn't be afraid to do that because you are a speaker. So I find there's always a fear there too with picking up the phone and talking. And I'm like, hey, you're a speaker. You should love to talk, whether it's on the
Yeah.
phone or a tin can and string. I mean, you should be out there, spreading your message. So have a plan. Definitely have a plan.
Hmm. Yeah. And you can certainly impress somebody much more as a speaker if you're speaking to them than if you send them an email.
Exactly. And you will find out more as well. If they're having company issues internally, they will never express that in an email, but they may say that to you. Hey, we're restructuring right now.
Hmm.
This is what's going on, but they're not going to put that in an email because they don't know what you're going to do with it afterwards. Companies never advertise when you are going to be solving a problem, whether that's communication problems internally, sales, hiring and firing, operations. You solve a problem as a speaker. So, especially if you're doing private training, companies never advertise when they're having issues. It's going to be your job to uncover that. You need to know what questions to ask. But again, if you ask that in email, they're not going to respond. No one in their
Hmm.
right mind would.
Hmm. That's great advice. Okay, now I know you're very passionate about storytelling, so this gets into when you do have the speaking gig or even in a presentation to somebody about, hey, why don't you hire me as a speaker? What's the role of storytelling in both of those scenarios?
Well, storytelling is going to show them your passion and why you're an expert at it. Usually, when I always recommend when you're telling a story, just like I told you in the beginning, when I decided to get back into speaking, what I experienced is I'm able to affiliate and associate with that pain that speakers go through. So you want to make sure that your storytelling is, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. I with the lack of communication or with whatever, you know, attaching a story to it lets them know that you're a human being just like they are. They're going to know that you're going to be able to relate to them. You understand their problem. it kind of puts you on the same level as them, but you found the solution. So you also need to have storytelling to be able to share this is what I've been able to do for myself. I am a big believer in that. I think that if you're able to help yourself and you can really relate that in the story, people hear passion in your voice. They hear that you are an expert, but they hear the passion, and it's almost like it catches on like brush fire. It reaches out to them through the phone, and they're like, okay, they get it. They get what I'm going through. But I'm also a big believer in you should never promote something or do something that you have not experienced yourself. It's a little bit harder to sell. So, for example, I'm a speaker too, so I can relate to speakers. I've also been a meeting planner, so I can relate to the meeting planner. But
Mm.
again, I always recommend to people, if you're able to do that, I mean, if you want to use a testimonial from someone else, fine. But um, you should always um, you should always follow your own advice as well. And people, they know when you don't do it, and I've had people ask me, well, have you had success with this? And I'm like, yes. And clearly I'm not going to promote anything that if I can't use it, how am I going to explain it to someone else? How am I going to help them with their problem? If I have not been sitting where they're at, it's just like I was polled one time I went to a gentleman who was speaking, and I went to this event. He polled the audience and said, who would you rather have advice from if we were going to, if you were in a war scenario, a war zone, who would you want advising you? The guy who has been in this war zone for the past 2 weeks, boots on the ground, or do you want the guy who was in the Korean War, Vietnam War, many years ago, who knows nothing about the situation you're in? And if you really think about it that way, most people are going to say, I want the guy who's there, boots on the ground, to assist me, because he's at the exact same place where I'm at right now. He can walk me through this. So you have to kind of look at that in the same regard. It's just like you would never want to take financial advice from someone who their finances are a mess. You want someone who maybe their finances used to be a mess, but they're not anymore. They figured a way out. That's the person you want to take advice from.
Mm. Yeah, that's wonderful advice too. Now, it applies across all businesses, right? So people kind of talk about various things as advice, and yet you take a look at some of their behavior and it's not congruent with that. And always that dissonance or that uncertainty that brings about in the mind of the person that's their potential client or their potential event manager in this case is going to undermine you.
Right.
All right. Well, this is fabulous, Kerry. I could keep talking ages about this because I think there's so many parallels with speaking with a whole lot of other marketing that people do about themselves. But I'm aware of the time and respectful of your time. So I think it's a good point to move on to the buzz, which is our innovation round designed to help our audience who are primarily innovators and leaders in their field with some tips from your experience. Now, I've got 5 questions, and hopefully you'll give us some really insightful answers and inspire the listener to go and do something awesome today as a result.
Oh,
So you ready?
great. I am ready. Go ahead.
Okay. Number 1 question is, what's the number 1 thing anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
Adapt to change.
And there's been a lot of change going on recently, hasn't there?
There has been. Yeah. The quicker you can adapt to change, the better.
So actually following on from change, and I'm talking, of course, about the effects that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on all of us with lockdowns and travel restrictions and so on. How's that impacted on the speaking industry, the people that have built their business essentially on speaking on stages?
Well, for those people who have let it affect them, they're in trouble. The people who have learned to make some changes and still continue to market in the event industry, most events are like the ones that were canceled for April and May. Those were planned. Speaker selection happened at least 6 months prior. So events are always being planned well in advance. So the minute you stop marketing, it hurts your future calendar. So most people who have been in the industry a while understand that. But I have seen quite a few speakers who unfortunately kind of use COVID-19 as a reason not to work, not to promote themselves. And they're in trouble. They're not doing well. So it's always important to there's always going to be something happening in the world, always. And
Mm,
you need to stay focused. And sometimes you have to change things up a little bit. Like we did a lot of virtual events and still continue to do those even after all of this is over. But things come up all the time. You just have to learn how to be prepared for those, and you never stop marketing. Rule
mm.
number
Yeah,
one.
that's right. Never stop marketing. I love it. Okay, what's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
I would say journaling. Journaling and exercising have been two things where I've gotten wonderful ideas. I try to journal every day, usually in the morning. And when I'm on the treadmill working out, sometimes I'll sit down and I'll think about something. And when I'm on the treadmill, I can really come up with great solutions and ideas. So I would say exercising and journaling.
Love it. So do you have an approach to the journaling part?
Yes. Well, I bought an actual journaling product that I use, and it's really, I try to do four things with it. It's, what negativity do I need to dump? That could be interfering with my focus and with me thinking. So I write all of those out, things that are aggravating me, no matter how big or how little they are. Write it out on paper. Then I write down what I'm grateful for. And I write down everything from the coffee that I'm drinking to my home to, you could even be grateful for toilet paper. Whatever you're feeling grateful for in that moment, jot it down because being grateful, it puts you in a better mindset. And then I always will journal about what I want my life to look like, that next week or that, in 6 months. And I write it as if it's come to fruition. It's already happened. And that helps your mindset immensely, and it keeps you grounded no matter what gets thrown at you during the day. Because again, there's always going to be things popping up, always. So that's the process that I use. And I just usually buy like a little journal. You can buy them at Target, Walmart, anywhere. And I use a pencil. I don't use anything fancy. And I just sometimes I'll sit out on my porch and have my coffee and journal. Or if I have to do it at night, I may have a glass of wine and sit down and journal.
Mm,
And it's been a huge, huge helpful thing for me.
great. I love it. All right. So is there a favorite resource you have that you use most often?
A favorite resource. That's a tough one. There's a lot of different things that I go to. Technology resources. I named a few of those earlier. Events in
Mm,
America. I would say because I'm such a process person that it's my Outlook calendar. Doing bookings and doing things in Outlook because that's been hugely helpful to me, and once I get everything set up, I just set it and it's done. Just walking people through the process.
mm, great. I love it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of processes and systems as well. And yeah, calendar is a great way to map things out when they get done and how they get done as well.
Mhm.
Okay, now what's the best way to keep a client on track? And it kind of leads on from that.
Well, I'm a big believer in, whether you're a coach, consultant, you're doing what I do or what you do, we can navigate people, we can point them in the right direction, but at the end of the day, they have to move their feet. So it's really giving them the tools and setting clear expectations from the get-go that they have to be involved. And I think any coach would agree with me on that, if you don't do the work, if you're not, if you're a mindset coach and you're telling people, yeah, you need to, do this, you need to journal every day, or you need to do affirmations, and you can't go over to someone's house and force them to do it. You can only do so much, and then personal responsibility has to kick in. So I think just making that very clear from the get-go is vital.
Yeah, I love that. I love um, they have to move their feet part, and
Mhm.
and it's so true. The accountability part, I think, is something that people undervalue a lot in when they're providing a product or service,
Mhm.
and also how to do that in a way that best serves the client is something a lot of people struggle with. So,
Well, I worked out with a personal trainer one time, and like he told me, I can help you here in the gym and I can give you a diet outline, but I can't come over to your house at 2 o'clock in the morning and pry the ice cream out of your hands. So you have to exercise self control.
yeah, I love it. All right. What's the number one thing anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
Put yourself in your story. That's what will make you unique. That is what, I see people who try to copy other people all the time, or, hey, this is a popular topic, leadership is. There's so many people who coach and train on leadership, but what's going to set you apart is, putting you in your own story. And also too, having your own system, your system that works. And again, that's where I go back to, you should be your number one fan. You should be, hey, this worked for me. Because if you really believe in it, you're going to be able to get other people to believe in it too.
Hmm. Yeah, I love it. Putting yourself in the story. We talked earlier about talking about yourself and putting yourself out there, and it comes back to the passion about this experience that I've lived is going to be helpful for somebody else, right?
Hmm.
Hmm. All right. Well, thanks for getting us through the buzz, Kerry. This has been really fabulous. Now, where can people find out more about you, find out more about Book, Speak, Repeat, and the podcast, and also maybe even reach out and say thank you for what you've shared with us today?
Absolutely. They can go to our website at book.speak.repeat.com/speaker. So we have information on there. Our podcast is also listed on there, so you can take a listen. And we also have a form on there. So if you want to do a free consult with me, I'm always happy to do that and offer and share advice where I can.
Wonderful. And we'll post that link in the show notes so people can click straight through. Now, do you have some parting advice you'd like to leave our listener today?
Parting advice. I would just say just keep moving forward. Take action every day, take inspired action, and just know you're going to have some bad days. We all do, but don't let that affect your focus. You're on a big mission, you're out to change lives. Don't let anything stand in that way.
Yeah, I love it. So yeah, and have that mindset of, I can make a change to people's lives here. And so you've almost got a responsibility to take some action every day.
You do. You really do.
Hmm. Wonderful. Finally, Kerry, who would you like me to chat with on a future InnovaBuzz podcast, and why?
Oh gosh. Well, there's so many people that I can think of. I would probably say one of the ladies that we work with, Sherry Clark. She's amazing. She owns a publishing company. She's based out of Florida as well, just like I am, and she helps people get their message out on, into books and getting those published. And that's another big thing. If you want to take the stage and be a speaker, you should have a book. We get asked for that 99% of the time. So I would say Sherry Clark.
All right. Well, we'll get an introduction to Sherry from you and reach out to her and speak with her as well.
Awesome.
Thanks for that suggestion, and thanks so much for sharing your time and your insights with us so generously today on the InnovaBuzz podcast. I've really enjoyed this and learnt a lot about how you approach the events industry and the speaking industry, and there's so many parallels there, I think, with marketing in general, but also with podcasting. So, and we didn't even talk about your podcast. I encourage people to listen into that to find out some more. I wish you all the best for the future, and let's keep in touch.
Absolutely. And thank you again for the opportunity. It was amazing. And I hope that your audience finds value in what I shared.
I'm sure they will. Thanks, Kerry.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that wonderfully engaging conversation with Kerry and took something away from her episode. For me, the marketing principles that Kerry described, specific to speakers landing their speaking engagements, I think they apply to all businesses, and I liked how she gave really clear examples of that marketing in action. I also like her storytelling advice of put yourself in the story as your means of differentiation. I'd love to know what you took away from Kerry's episode. Leave a comment below the blog post, which you can find at InnovaBuzz.co/Kerry Heaps. That is KerryHeaps. All lowercase, all one word, InnovaBuzz.co/Kerry Heaps. You'll also find contact information for getting in touch with Kerry there, as well as links to the Book.Speak.Repeat website, to her social media pages, and to the other resources we spoke about in today's conversation. Kerry suggested that we have a conversation with book publisher Sherry Clark on a future InnovaBuzz podcast episode. So Sherry, keep an eye on your inbox for an invitation from us to the InnovaBuzz podcast, courtesy of Kerry Heaps. Tune in again to the next episode of the InnovaBuzz podcast, where we've got some more fantastic guests lined up. It's never ending, is it? These fantastic guests this time include the founder of Splashio, Gideon Shelwick, and Lisa Manette from Badass Beauty TV. Thanks for listening to this episode. Make sure you subscribe to the show to be reminded of new episodes. It's free to subscribe. Leave a review if you like. Even if you don't like me, I'm okay with that. I'm asking you to leave a review because it helps other people find this show. Go to InnovaBuzz.co to join our marketing transformation community and access a free gift my team and I made for you. It's the Marketing Master Mini Class. We want to give you everything you need to transform your marketing into a human-centered, relationship-focused growth engine. Until next time, I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz. Remember, be awesome and keep innovating.